Hey everybody, it's Benny1 and I'm back at you with another movie review, everybody, and we're moving on to The Mummy 3. The Mummy and the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, everybody. That is correct. So this movie came out 7 years after The Mummy Returns, because you had The Mummy in 99 and then 2 years later The Mummy Returns came out. And then poof, 7 years later, man. Wow. It's just, and I kind of it to me kind of explains why this movie, I guess, kind of turned out the way that it did. This is very clearly the weakest entry in this Mummy trilogy that Brendan Fraser was in. Very clearly the weakest entry. Yeah, because it's directed by a different person. It was directed by Rob Cohen, and I don't think he was suited to direct this third chapter in this movie. And it also was too many years afterwards. When you wait 7 years to make a sequel or even a third movie in your trilogy, it's just too long. They should have made it about maybe 3 to 4 years afterwards. But the one thing about this movie that I can respect, and I can kind of see where they were going with it, because the concept is there, because they decided to have this take place in a different country, which I think is great. It's a great idea. We have a different mummy. It's the Dragon Emperor, who's played by Jet Li. Like, I like how they took us to a different part of the world to tell a little bit different story, so they're not retreading the things that they did in the first and the second movie, because the second movie, they kind of retreaded things that happened in the first movie. So I love that they were trying to go a different route with this one and tell a different story. But my biggest thing with it is how they went about it and the execution of that, which we will get into. But we're going to go through our cast really fast, everybody. So Brendan Fraser comes back, everyone, to play Rick O'Carnell. And I would say it's my least favorite performance of his in this trilogy, because it's too silly. And that's kind of a thing with the entire movie is like his character always was he had jokes in there that he would throw in every once in a while, but it doesn't feel very natural in this movie. It feels very forced, and he kind of gets a little too silly at times for me. So it's my least favorite performance of his. He still does the action stuff really well. Like, he's really good at all that still. And then John Hannah comes back to play Jonathan, and Jonathan is in a very different place in this movie. He owns a freaking casino called Emoteps in China, because that's where our movie takes place. So, but I actually kind of like what they did with Jonathan's character, because it actually seems like something that Jonathan's character would have done and moved on to do with the money that they have gotten from these two big expeditions that they went on over 20 years ago. There you go. There's a hint of one of my biggest issues of the movie 20 years later. But yeah, he's just as good as Jonathan. Now, one of the biggest issues with the movie for me is Maria Bello, and she replaced Rachel Weisz as Evie. And I'm guessing, obviously, Rachel Weisz either couldn't come back to do this movie, or she didn't want to, because it was so many years later, and maybe she didn't like the script. So, but she feels like a complete, and it's nothing against Maria. It's nothing against the actress. She's probably a great actress. I don't know if I've ever seen her in anything else. I didn't look it up. She feels like a completely different person. She doesn't feel like Evie. Her and Rick's relationship in this movie, it's 20 years later, and it just doesn't feel like the Evie that we had in the other two movies. It just was very off-putting to me. It's weird, and like, I don't know, she literally feels like a completely different character, even though she's playing Evie still. I almost feel like they should have had her die. I mean, the movie literally takes place about 20 years later after The Mummy Returns, because Alex is in his 20s. He's in his late 20s, or maybe even 30. Like, they don't specifically say, but I feel like maybe they should have had Evie die, and they could have written that into the script, and then they could have had another love interest maybe come in that they go on this adventure with. And, Rick is still dealing with the effects of losing Evie. And then maybe by the time the adventure's over and the end of the movie, he might have a relationship with said new love interest. I mean, I just feel like they could have done something else with the character, because miscast for sure. And it's nothing against the actress, but. And then Luke Ford plays Alex, our grown up adult version of Alex. And they really try to emphasize that he is where his dad was when the first Mummy movie came out. So, and he does a good job. I mean, I don't know, I don't really have any critiques of him. He's just Alex, an older version of their son from The Mummy Returns. So, and they go on an adventure with him. Of course, they actually have to help him out at one point. So, and they're pissed at him because he dropped out of college again and all this stuff. So, and they're kind of mad that he's going on these expeditions and doing dangerous shit. But it's what they did, so of course he was going to do it. So, and then Jet Li plays the Dragon Emperor, everybody, and wow, did they waste this character on him. They completely wasted it. The CGI did not look good in this movie. It was bad, actually. The CGI was bad. And a lot of Jet Li's version, half of him in the movie is CG. He's like a clay. Instead of him being like a corpse, he's like clay. He's like almost pottery, and he like breaks and shatters, and then he can get it repaired with this fucking, I don't even know what the hell it is in the movie, to tell you the truth, but he's kind of like a clay pot. Yeah, that's pretty much what I got out of it. So, and Michelle Yao is in this movie. She plays Z Wan, I think is how you pronounce the name, but it's another wasted potential. Her and Jet Li as the Dragon Emperor have this fight in the movie, and these two are some of the best martial artists, actors, and actresses in the business, probably still today. And the fight scene between them was just so boring and such a letdown. Like, come on, you guys. Like, you got to take advantage of these two being in your movie. So, but Michelle Yeoh's character is the mom of Isabella Leong. Her character is Lynn, and that's her daughter. And they both basically live forever because she's kind of like a sorceress of some sorts over in China. So, but yeah, the cast is pretty solid, I would say, except for the casting of Maria for Evie. Very miscast. So, and my biggest thing about the movie is it takes place 20 years later. And I really think they shouldn't have had the movie take place that far ahead into the story. Like, I feel like maybe if they would have only done maybe about 10-ish years, maybe 5, they could have cast. I mean, they did this movie literally 7 years later. So the kid that played Alex in The Mummy Returns could have returned to play Alex in high school. Like, I just feel like there was a better story here if they just wouldn't have used a huge time jump to tell the story. And the CG did not look good. The action I don't know what it is. The action just doesn't feel, and maybe it's because it's a different director. The action just doesn't seem as good in this one. The movie just feels off compared to the other two movies, and it could be the director. The story very clearly could have used some tweaks. I will say that. It's just such a bummer because the other two movies are pretty entertaining. And this movie gets too silly. Like, they always had the quirky, funny stuff in the other two movies, but this one takes it too far. Like, there's a scene where there's Yetis. They literally get Yetis to come and help them, which the CG looks bad with those too. And literally one of the people they're fighting, the henchmen, gets kicked up through like things that look like a field goal post, and the one Yeti goes, "Woo, field goal!" I'm like, okay, come on now. Like, they just go too far with it in this movie. So, The Mummy, the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, everybody, I'm gonna give this bad boy a 5 out of 10. It is, I would say, very clearly the weakest Mummy movie. I have to rewatch the Tom Cruise Mummy movie, so who knows? maybe that one will be. It's been a hot minute since I've watched it. So yeah, a 5 out of 10 for The Mummy 3, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed that review. I thank you for watching, and I'll be catching you on the tube later because I have spoken.